Welcome to Season 4 of You're Not Alone with Townsend. On this podcast, I'll be sitting down with guests from all over the world to discuss everything under the umbrella of mental health, diagnoses, sharing stories of resilience, medical advice, and even getting some tips and tricks from licensed counselors. The goal of this podcast is to teach us how to understand others, ourselves, and help spread love and light, one episode at a time. Please make sure to like and follow this podcast, and if you'd like to see the videos of these conversations, hop on over to my YouTube channel, TownsendTmusic YouTube, where you can find the podcast and my latest music. This podcast is run solely by supporters and listeners just like you. So if you'd like to help keep this podcast and project going, please consider hopping on patreon.com/TownsendTmusic to be part of the team. You'll also find extra content and questions with each and every guest. Let's hop in. What is up, everybody? I am so excited about this episode. Thank you for tuning in to Season 4. I cannot believe we are that far along, and I'm actually really excited. I know the past couple of seasons, we have had life coaches on here to discuss setting goals, what that looks like, what to do. Well, I ran into Becca Mitchell, and she's going to sit down and chit-chat with us about not only setting goals, but mistakes that we might be making. I saw her posting about this and was like, that is a great topic to have. So Becca, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. I really appreciate you taking time. So the new year comes up, and I know for me specifically, I'm always like, honestly, before I spoke with Selena, the last coach that we had on here, I didn't really do goals. And I told her that. I remember before we hopped on the podcast, I was like, I don't really set goals. And then she hopped on there and I was like, perhaps I should start setting goals. And it really, I mean, to be someone that went from not to setting goals, it actually makes a huge difference. I'm an advocate for them because I used to think you're just kind of setting yourself up for failure, but I'm a big advocate now.
I don't like to fail. So I feel that hesitation, right?
Yeah, literally. I think that's what I don't want to set a goal and not reach it and then be like, you just look at that thing that you didn't get to check off. I like to check things off a to-do list. So if I can't do that, I don't want to do it.
Now, a quick shout out to our sponsors.
If you're looking to buy or sell, I have the perfect realty company for you. Clark & Co. Realty is located in the Benton, Bryant, Arkansas area. And they understand that buying or selling a home is more than just a transaction. It's a life-changing experience. That's why their team of highly seasoned real estate professionals is dedicated to providing exceptional, personalized services for all their clients. They truly take great pride in the relationships they build, and they always work relentlessly on the client's behalf to help them achieve their perfect real estate goals. They always have the client in mind, and I can speak firsthand when I say how reliable, trustworthy, and quick they were. When I was looking to buy my first home, they were there with me every step of the way, answering every question I could think of. They showed me a great amount of knowledge and patience through the process. It's no wonder they've won so many awards for their outstanding services and their excellent relationships with clients. So if you're looking to buy or sell, there is no better option than Clark & Co. Realty.
I'm an Enneagram 3. So I live for efficiency and achieving, right? That's the thing that drives me. Just the way God put me together is I like to achieve. So I feel you in my soul when you say you like to check things off the list.
I am not a 3, but it sounds like we got a lot in common. Becca, so one thing that I like my guests to do is kind of introduce themselves. So I know we throw the term around like crazy life coach, but really, what is that? What does that look like? How would you describe that? And then just whatever else you want to share with my listeners.
Sure. Well, like you said, I'm Becca Mitchell, and I am a certified Impact Mastermind life coach. So I work with Impact Coaching and Consulting in Conway, but I have clients all over. And I got started coaching because I was a client of Impact's for years. And my spiritual gift is encouragement. And so a few years ago, Selena asked me if I would consider joining her team and training to be a life coach. And I've said this before on a different podcast, but I think that the moment she asked me that question, it was like instantly in my spirit, I was like, yes, this is one of those things that God put me on this earth to do. The only other yes in my life I've been just that absolutely sure of was when my husband asked me to marry him, right? Like when you know, you know.
Yeah.
So I work with mostly women. I do work with men, but I primarily work with women. That's just where my heart is, where I feel like this is my ministry. And we work on all kinds of things. We talk about work-life balance is this thing that everyone comes to me and says, help me with this. And I get to talk to them about what that actually looks like, because there's really no such thing. But you can have harmony. We work on time management. I do a lot of goal setting and strategy. And we work together to sort of figure out how the client, right, gets to adjust what their goals are or what their priorities are for a given season of their life, and then evaluate what's working, what isn't working. And I get to be that sort of just like safe space where they can word vomit all the things without judgment. And I don't ever tell people what to do. I just get to sort of ask the hard questions that kind of give you pause and make you go, that's interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you're almost like a counselor just for life. Like, what do I do now? They just kind of bounce ideas off you and you give them guidance, maybe help them steer through the roads and the paths of life.
Yes. So counseling is it's technically different from coaching, but there's a fine line there, right? Because as a coach, I want to offer encouragement and support and be, like I said, a safe space and a very like empathetic ear where I'm gonna like hear you for what you're saying and where you are and just take that for what it is without judgment. Um, but my job isn't necessarily to help you figure out like why things are a certain way. Which a lot of times counseling, you're looking back
True.
and you're looking at what maybe something that's happened in your past and how it's caused you to be the way you are, or to feel a certain way about things. And that's not really the job of a coach. As a coach, um, I take you and help you look forward, right? So there's kind of a place for both, and a lot of times the topics do overlap. And I say that just to say, your podcast focuses on mental health. There is a time and a place for counseling, and I have had clients before that I have said, look, I'm not who you need right now, right? Like you
Wow.
need a trained counselor, and once you work through um, some of this that you have going on, then you'll be in a place where I can step in as your coach and really help you.
Wow.
But we're really careful at Impact not to cross that line, just because there are some differences there, and we want to honor people, where they are. And sometimes we have things that we need to deal with and process before we're ready to like change them or do something different.
Yeah. That was such a great way to word that. That was perfect. Yeah, yeah. We want to meet you when you're ready to be where you are. That's awesome. I love that. Well, let's hop in. Let's go ahead and chat New Year's resolutions. So we're starting this brand new year, which everybody gets all stressed out and worked up. And, you just had the holidays and all these things going on. Why is it important to set goals? Like, why is that a thing that people promote?
I think that's a great question. I'm a goal driven person, right? You said earlier that you used to just not set goals. I don't know what that's like. I'm like, what does that look? How does that
You're like,
work?
what?
Yeah. But I understand that there are people like you in the world, right? And it's amazing that your brain works so differently than mine. But I think goals are universally useful, whether you like them, whether they come naturally to you or not. I think that they are motivating. And I think that they give us sort of a sense of purpose.
Mhm.
So we feel like we're working towards something. And in that same way, if you have a goal that you are willing to sort of like put it out there and make it tangible, right? Write it down, speak it aloud, something makes it real.
Mhm.
And that connects you to what you're doing in your day-to-day life. I think so often we get in sort of this just like routine where we're just sort of existing, or just floating through, and we're just trying to make it through the day, and then we're just trying to make it to tomorrow, and we don't really know like what we're doing or why we're here, or where we're going with all of these daily activities. And I think when you have a goal, it connects you to the things that you're doing in your daily life. I think New Year's resolutions are a thing that so many people do, that it feels natural to kind of go along with the crowd, and in that way connects you to other people as well. Even if you have different goals, but having a New Year's resolution, it feels like a fresh start, and you feel like you're not the only one, right?
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Kind of build a community. It seems like social media wise and friend wise, it's always the same thing. Like people set goals to, I'm going to work out more, I'm going to lose weight. And so the gym memberships skyrocket. And to me, I always saw that as, I don't want to be that person that sets some goal. Of course, you want to do that, but 3-4 months in, the gym memberships start plummeting back to their normal rate and nobody keeps it up. And 6 months in, you've kind of even forgotten you set that goal. And then you're back to square one come October and November. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I was kind of stuck in my mindset, and kind of what I spoke to Selena about was my mindset was I'm just going to work as hard as I can as a business owner, and I'm going to get as far as I can. And success to me is being able to survive and pay bills and such like that. And she was just like, okay, it wasn't like, no, you should set goals. Like she was very graceful in the way that she handled that, but I'm sure she was thinking like you, like how though? But yeah, after hearing her say like why we set goals, and I actually sat down and did them last year, and it was really cool. It was something I still needed someone to sit down at the end of this year and be like, or the end of last year and be like, okay, you remember when we set those goals in January? Let's talk about them now. And the ones that you meet are so cool. Like it feels so wonderful. But I still needed somebody to like remind me,
Yeah.
and be like, hey, you did do this.
Yes. I have a group that I participate in this group, and then I'm also leading a group in 2025. But we actually meet quarterly
Oh,
to do
cool.
just that. And I mean, like I love goals. I'm a nerd about goals, and there's always at least one of my goals that when I sit down for the quarterly thing, I go, oh my gosh, I haven't like thought about this. I haven't looked at this since the last time we did this.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have that quarterly, like regularly scheduled, like I'm going to check in, I'm going to be accountable to myself on this date and set it on the calendar, I would set that goal and forget it.
Yeah. And I
Right.
feel like I'm super organized. Like I have them written down. I have all these different, like I have a booking notebook. I have my music notebook, my podcast notebook, this, that, another. I had a whole goal notebook. And by the end of the year, you just like, you kind of slack off a little bit. So I can't imagine people that like aren't determined. Like I'm incredibly determined. Like I'm a driven person. And so I can't imagine people that, aren't that way. I bet goals are hard.
They are. And I think um, you kind of hinted at something that a lot of people do that is an explanation for why those goals are so hard, right? It's because you're picking goals that you don't actually care about,
Yeah. I believe
right?
that. Listen, yeah, absolutely. You don't know what to pick. You're just like, sure, maybe this or that.
That or you have a laundry list of all the shoulds and you're shoulding yourself to death, right?
Yeah.
And because you have all of these outside um, voices and opinions and things that you hear, these expectations that we absorb and we put on ourselves and we take on. And so we have this laundry list of things, of goals that we want to change or want to be. And we don't ever actually do them because we don't think that we can, and aren't sure even how to get started because it's so far out there that it just seems unrealistic, or we don't actually care about it.
Yeah.
Right. I had a
Absolutely.
goal for a year that I was going to keep my house clean. Okay. Because I just thought that's what good moms do. And, you know, guess what? I don't care.
Yeah.
I do dumpster. I mean, it's clean. We don't live in filth.
Sure.
It's clean because I am fortunate enough to be able to pay someone to clean it every 2 weeks.
That's right. Listen, sister.
Listen, live in your strengths, right? But I just decided, like, this is not my thing. Like, if she listens to this, she will know that I'm talking about her, but I'm not going to say a name. But I have a friend whose house looks like a magazine every single time you walk in her house.
Aren't they the worst? The best, but the worst.
Yes.
Like you want to go over there all the time, but you leave being like, oh, I'm the worst.
Yes.
I need to clean.
Except I don't really want to. And so I never would. I don't want to clean. I don't see the clutter until I see it, and it drives me crazy, and then I rage clean. But that was one of those things that I finally just had to say, look, this doesn't actually matter to me. Like, I'm going to stop, like, throwing guilt on myself for failing at this goal or this expectation that I have put on myself that nobody else has put on me. No one is actually judging me because there's, toys in the floor and my shoes are in the living room floor and dishes in the sink. No one.
I love that. I love that. The goal, like the things we put on ourselves. I love that you said that. No one's actually judging you, right? No one cares. I love
and I've made my life's mission, well, one of them, to stop apologizing for those things.
Ooh, I love that. That's awesome.
Right? Like, I want to myself stop saying, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't clean. I'm sorry my house is a mess. I'm sorry I have dishes in the sink. Like, I don't want to do that. And I want to stop other people when they do it too.
I love that. I love that.
This idea that it should be different, which is silly.
It's silly. Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in your home is lived in. You know what I mean? It is what it is. It just means that the home is loved and it's lived in. There are going to be dishes. There are going to be toys. You have children. There are going to be dog toys. You have a dog or whatever. So be it. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's hop in. I love this. I'm feeling motivated already. So here's my thing. When we're setting goals, it's hard to set realistic goals or even know where to start, right? So let's start with what are some mistakes we make when setting goals and how could we avoid those? Let's start there. Like what mistakes are we making when we're choosing these things?
Okay, I've got a list. Okay?
Let's do it. All right, let's do it.
I think the first, especially with New Year's resolution, I think the first mistake that people make is that they set too many goals.
I could see that.
Right? So they have goals around like every aspect of their life. They have fitness goals, they have financial goals, they have work goals, they have, personal, I'm going to read a book every month, whatever it is. But like, we're not going to wake up on January 1st and be a completely different person.
Here's my thing. And I don't know if you've noticed this, Becca. The older I get, it seems like there's just not enough time in the day. Like we can't do all those things. And you wake up on January thinking maybe you'll have more time.
Yes. And you think you have to do like all or nothing. That's another mistake that people make is that as they're going through their goal, if they mess up one time, right? If your goal is to work out 4 times a week and you have a week where you only work out twice, you're like, oh, well, there goes that. Yeah. Right? Like, that's not this all or nothing mentality. That is a cop out. Some tough love, right? And I'm preaching that to the mirror, okay?
Yeah.
But have that sort of all or nothing mentality. We don't give ourselves the grace to be better than we were in December, but not necessarily the absolute best that we could be, right? We're just going to decide, and that's all there is to it. I think another mistake that people make is that their goal is too broad.
Okay.
So they haven't gotten specific, and that's hard. And sometimes that's scary, right? Because that's when you start having to really commit. If you make a goal, and fitness is just an easy example, but if you make a goal to say, I'm going to be healthier in 2025, that's great. But that is like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
But if you say, I'm going to lose 25 pounds by June 1st, that you can fail at, right? And that requires you to be like, oh, then I better figure out where I'm going to start. It better be measurable. I got to know where I'm starting. And so I think that having your goals be too broad or too general is a mistake that people make, because then they don't have clear action items on what do I need to do to get there.
I like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because they haven't really defined where there is.
Yeah. It's like, I didn't eat that cookie. That's kind of healthier.
Right? Healthier, which is not necessarily a bad place to start, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that kind of segues into the third thing, which is that people, they don't have a plan. They have the best of intentions, but deciding that you have this goal and that you're going to set this goal is not a plan, right? It takes effort to think through, okay, how am I going to break this down into baby steps? What are like maybe some milestones? Like, how will I know when I'm halfway there? How will I know if it's working or if it's not? When am I going to sit down and look at what's going well and what is really a struggle? We don't sit down and think about ahead of time, like, okay, what could go wrong? And some people may think that doing so will like talk themselves out of the goal, because they'll decide it's just too much. I can't do it, right? Because all these things could go wrong. I come from a place where I want to identify ahead of time what potentially could go wrong. Because I'm acknowledging that something is going to go wrong, right? Because real life. But then also, if you've thought about it ahead of time and you sort of have a plan for how to get back on track quickly, which means you're more likely to stick to your goal, right? Because you're less easily derailed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are good. Yeah. Keep going, girl. What else you got?
Okay, this one's funny, and I may get some hate for this, but I think that having the wrong accountability partner is huge.
Well, you are spitting truths, and I kind of like it.
I mean, I kind of spit truth. That's what I do. I'm married. I've been married for a little over 20 years, and I have
Becca, how old are you? You do not look, excuse the change in subject, you do not look old enough to have been married 20 years. Did you get married when you were 12?
No, I was perfectly legal. I got married when I was 20, so I will be 41 the Friday after Christmas.
Becca, you age like fine wine. What
Thank you.
You look 20.
I
Side
am.
note, good night. Okay, I'm blown away. That's awesome. Good for you.
I have this great husband, and we've been married
And
20
Gen
years.
X, yeah.
We've gotten pretty good at communicating and knowing each other's communication styles. And I love him, and he's incredibly supportive. He is not the best motivator for me. Right?
Yeah, that's okay. He can't be everything, Becca.
I know. But I think sometimes it's hard for us to separate the people that are closest to us from the people that are our best accountability partners. It's not necessarily the same thing. And there can be a variety of reasons for that. It can be just that their communication style is not what you need. Or it can be that they are so close to you and they're seeing you every day that they are not seeing progress the way somebody that only sees you every couple of weeks or every couple of months is going to see those changes, right? Mm-hmm. And so they could have a great communication style and be super encouraging to you, but they might not see what somebody else sees because they see you every day.
That's a good one. I never would have thought about that. That's a great one.
I think having like that right accountability partner is so important. And there's tons of studies out there, but there's studies that show that if you tell somebody your goal, you're much more likely to actually achieve it. Just because you were willing to admit it out loud to somebody else, right? It makes it real. You don't want to disappoint that person. You want to be seen as a person of your word, right? And that you're committed and dependable. And so just saying it out loud. And I think sometimes we are afraid to not just set the goal, but admit the goal to somebody else.
Heck yeah. Have somebody hold you accountable. That's tough.
It is tough, but it's really helpful too, because that person can encourage you and support you and cheer for you, especially on the days that you're maybe lacking motivation, right? Because motivation's going to come and go.
Yeah.
Conviction and understanding that sort of like why is going to be your fallback, right? Which goes back to you got to pick something that actually matters to you. Because if the why you're doing it isn't there, then when you lose that motivation, you're not gonna stick with it.
That's awesome. I love that you have a group that you meet with quarterly. I was going to say that earlier. That's so cool to sit down and be like, okay, here's where I am. Where are you? And you can kind of like go back and forth and spit truth with each other. Be like, sister, you're kind of slacking. Let's get
Mhm.
going.
It's a little bit. It
A
is a
little
little
bit.
bit.
I'm all about being a little blunt, loving, but a little blunt. And I want that back to me as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm looking here. I think the only other thing that I felt like we haven't covered yet, but it goes along with it, is going it alone. And I kind of
Yeah.
mentioned that, right, where you don't tell anybody. You're going to stick with it more if you have somebody else. Ideally, it's somebody else that is working towards a similar goal. But even if it's not the same goal, somebody else that is working on something. And that's why our masterminds have been so powerful. It's because everybody has a different goal that they're working on, but collectively, everybody's working on something.
Yeah.
And so even if it's just one other person that you say, hey, I'm really trying to do X, will you just check in on me on how that's going? And they say back to you what they're working on, right? Like just
Yeah.
even with one other person, just knowing that you are getting up and doing the thing because they're getting up and doing the thing,
That's
whatever their
right.
thing is. Um, Having that sense of community is really powerful.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's so cool that you have a group to kind of meet up. Is there so maybe picking a friend that's working on goal that's like, I kind of want to set goals this year, being like, you know what? Let's make a pact to each other. Let's check in like quarterly or whatever.
Yeah,
Love it.
absolutely. Whether it's a friend, I have clients that actually don't want to be a friend. You know what I mean? Because when they
Yeah.
work through some of the hard parts of their goal, they don't want there to be any feelings involved.
Hey,
Like,
it
let's
makes sense. It makes
you
sense.
know, or maybe it's something to do with work,
Yeah.
and their friends are the people they work with, and they just don't want to like have to process that
Mhm.
with people that they work with
Yeah.
because they want to keep those boundaries separate or um,
So
whatever it may be.
insert life coach.
Insert life coach.
I like it. Okay, it's all coming together. How cool. I love that. Absolutely. So, we were kind of talking about, and we touch on this frequently, something I wouldn't say I struggle with this, but by the end of the year, I think majority of people start struggling with that motivation, right? It gets to be, you're hardcore. Like we talked about the earlier, the gym memberships are skyrocketing. You can barely get in a gym, but by the time June comes around, kind of starts going back to normal. And by the end of the year, we've started all over again. How the heck do we stay motivated to finish up the year strong? How do we keep that going all year?
That's also a great question. And I think there's kind of two ways to answer that. And I think that they're both true. So I'm
Okay.
just going to answer it both ways. Um, the first thing that comes to my mind is that sometimes when we feel like we're losing motivation, whether it be like when summer rolls around or here towards the end of the year, it feels like we're losing motivation. But what it really is that we've had a shift in our priorities because quite literally, we're in a different season.
Yeah.
And so, where I work with clients is helping them understand okay, what is this next season? Like, let's name it, let's define it, whether it's um, summer while your kids are out of school and how that changes your schedule and your time and your energy, or even this holiday season when we're pulled in so many different directions with all the things happening. It's not that I'm not motivated for my goal. It's that I have shifted priorities a little bit because I have other things that truly are more important. It's not that the goal is no longer important, but there are other things that are more important right now. And so I think knowing that that's potentially the case, right? That goes to the sort of the second way to answer that is that you have to plan for that.
Yeah.
And if you're not planning what your month looks like, what your week looks like, how much time you have, how much energy you have, does your expectation for like what progress you're going to make in this given season, does it match the energy that you have to give to the goal? So in terms of how you sort of stay motivated, I think it's for me, it's that strategy.
Yeah.
It's taking the like Google Earth, like I'm going to zoom out, I'm going to look at the whole year, and I'm going to kind of look at the different phases of the year or seasons a little bit separately and see how are they different and how do I need to adjust my plan or my expectations for this particular season, right? And then the other great way to stay, I guess, stay motivated is to measure your progress. If you're not, measuring your progress, like you're going to forget, you're going to get lost because nothing is more motivating than progress.
Yeah.
Right. So whether it is seeing a balance in your bank account or seeing the balance go down on some debt that you're trying to pay off or the number on the scale or whatever your goal is, like whatever it is you're trying to get to, when you can see it, it stays front of mind and you are motivated to continue pushing. And so when you know that there are seasons coming up where your priorities are going to pull your focus elsewhere, those are the seasons where do everything we can to make that goal and our current status on the goal visible, whether it's a post-it note on your mirror or a reminder on your phone every Tuesday morning to check the balance on that account, like whatever it might be. We make it more visible because that helps us stay motivated.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes with what you said, making measurable goals. Like, okay, seeing the progress, which is where I came in last year when I set goals. I had someone have to sit down and be like, okay, remember the goals we set 12 months ago? You met that. Like, look and how wonderful that felt. So that's something I myself could do a lot better with is checking in, like complimenting myself, being like, hey, you actually did that. Take a moment to like
Yeah.
hone in and like soak in that instead of just going for the next thing.
Yeah. And that's why we set milestones. What's one of the
Yeah.
reasons we set
Yeah.
milestones when we're strategizing and we're coming up with our goals plan because we don't want to just celebrate when we get to the end. We want to celebrate every single success along the way, no matter how little it is, because we need those wins. And it's not that we need constant validation, but we just need evidence that we are moving forward.
Absolutely. 12 months is a long time. We need check-ins throughout there. So basically, here's what's going to happen. Becca, I'm going to have to message you and you're going to have to be like, keep going. So like in 3 months, I'm going to be like, I need a little kick in the butt. And you're going to be like, just keep going. You'll be fine. Give me a little motivation.
I got you.
I love it. Those are all such good input and good information. So are there any tips and tricks for listeners while we're going into this new year? Any little nuggets of information you'd give us?
Well, yes. Start small.
I like that. Yeah.
So we'll stick with our gym analogy because it's easy. If you have a goal to work out 3 or 4 days a week, but you're currently at 0, you probably don't want to start January 1 with planning to go 3 days a week. You can, but you're going to be better off. And it's probably a more sustainable change if you make smaller incremental habits, incremental changes. So if you go once a week, your goal is once a week in January, and maybe February comes around, you go twice a week. But give yourself a chance to adapt to each small change and then make the next small change. So you're building on it instead of just waking up January 1st and trying to be basically a new person. Thinking about your environment and what you can do to set yourself up to be successful in terms of what food is in your house, what commitments, what things are you committing to that might take your time and your energy away from your goal. Just looking around your calendar, so what you're doing with your time, but also just like the physical things in your house, or the route you take home from work or whatever it might be. Like, look at your environment. And then one of my favorite things that I work on with clients as far as tips and tricks is we try to imagine the person who has already reached this goal. So if your goal is to be a healthier person, right? Then you, in your mind, you say, okay, I am already a healthy person. Or if I was a healthy person, what would I do today? What decisions would I make? And you sort of project this person, make yourself a little avatar if you want to, and then you make decisions based on that, right? Like, if I was already this person, what would I be doing? What would a healthy person eat? What would a healthy person do with this hour of time in the evening? Would they sit on the couch and watch TV? Maybe. Or would they go for a walk if the weather's nice? Probably that. But you can sort of trick yourself into doing these things by pretending like you're already that person and saying, okay, what would this person do? And so you sort of tell yourself that you're already the person you're trying to become.
I like that. You're already the person you're trying to become. Becca, I feel like I got to go process all this. It's like a free session with Becca. That was all. Like, there's so much information. I think the one that sticks out the best for me and one that I relate to the most is the seasons of life. I love that. Like, basically just showing yourself grace. Like, your priorities have just shifted, and that's okay. That's okay.
There's no goal that you're going to like achieve. And it's like, okay, set it and forget it, and you never have to think about it anymore. There's no autopilot option. And I think we keep looking for that in our life. We think we're going to like achieved something and then we're just good and we don't have to think about it anymore. And stay that way forever.
I think they forgot to tell us that when people were like, you should set New Year's goals. They forgot to tell you like the realistic part of it. Like, hey, yeah, it's okay. Like, life happens sometimes.
Yeah. And, I tell clients all the time, like, if you're in the middle of something and you have this plan and it is working great, and then all of a sudden it's not necessarily because you failed or because you weren't disciplined enough or you weren't motivated enough or you weren't strong enough, like whatever it was. It's just that like something else changed. So maybe the season changed. Maybe your circumstances changed. Maybe your environment changed, right? But there's no plan where you can just set it and forget it and it's going to work forever.
I love that. I love that. Becca, thank you so much for not only taking time out, but I mean, you set aside, people basically got a free lesson from Becca. Okay. So take that, hit her up. Where can people find you? Speaking of, if they're like, okay, this sounds good, I want to learn more, where can they find you?
Oh, thank you for asking. You can find me on Instagram at coaching_with Becca, or I'm on Facebook, it's just my name, Becca Mitchell. You can also find me on the Impact Coaching and Consulting website, which is impactcoachteam.com.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with us. I got to go like process all this. I'm feeling motivated to set some goals. So I appreciate that.
I love it. It makes me so happy.
All right. To all my listeners, you know how this works. Me and Becca are going to keep talking. We're going to do some more personal questions to get to know her, but this is going to be for patrons only. So if you'd like to hear those, hop over to patreon.com/TownsendTmusic. That's also how we keep this podcast and this project running. So we'd love if you hopped on, help support this project. If not, we will catch you next time.
If you'd like to hear the rest of this interview, visit patreon.com/TownsendTmusic. And don't forget, you can also watch the interviews on our YouTube channel at TownsendTmusic YouTube.